In this video, I'd like to talk about the RGB matrix feature in the app. And what this is support for LED matrices. And what's a matrix, you say? Well, it's RGB LEDs in a grid pattern. And a good example would be this dance floor, where you've got LED panels that can be snapped together in whatever size matrix you would like, depending on the number of panels you have. Another example might be a blinder, or say you have several LED bars and you could stack them vertically, and say you had 4 of these bars, you could stack them to where you had a matrix where it's 4 high and 12 wide. You could also take a number of LED bars like this and turn them vertically and create a vertical matrix where, you know, say you had 4 across and 12 high. So for this demo, let's use this dots matrix fixture because it's really a matrix all built into one package, and it's probably the easiest way for me to show you how to set something up. The first thing you need to do with any of these fixtures is to look at the DMX modes that are available. And if you go to the manual for this product and go down to the DMX modes, you'll notice that there's a 48 channel mode, which is exactly what we're looking for here. And what that mode does is each color in each pixel gets its own DMX channel. So we have 16 pixels times 3, so that's 48 channels. So you've got red, green, blue for the first pixel, red, green, blue for the second pixel, and so forth. And the other thing we need to look at is how the pixels are laid out on the device. And in the case of this, you can actually program the pixel layout, how it's mapped to the DMX channel. In this case, I would use the very bottom layout, which to me is the most logical, where you've got 1, 2, 3, or 4 across the top. Next row is 5, 6, 7, 8. To me, that makes the most sense. But really, you can use any of these patterns you want, or in the case of your fixture, you may not have a choice. It might be hardwired to a certain pattern. So regardless of how the pixels are laid out on the fixture itself, you'll be able to map them however you want when you lay out the matrix in the app, and I'll show you how to do that. The first thing we need to do is to patch the dots matrix fixture into the system so that it knows where the DMX addresses are of all the pixels. So let's go to patching, and I'm going to put this on page 3 because that's a clean page. The dots matrix fixture is in the library under ADJ, but not the 48 channel version of that. So what I'm going to do, this is kind of a shortcut and it really saves a lot of time. I'm just going to go to generic, and I'm going to go RGB, and I'm going to patch 16, which is that's how many pixels we have. And essentially that's my dots matrix fixture right there, 16 RGB pixels. And I'll set the DMX address for in universe 1, starting at address 83. What you can do is manually set the very first address, and I'm going to put this on universe 3 because I'm using the ADJ 4-stream interface, and it's got 4 DMX universes. For those of you that are using just the regular old Airstream, you're going to have to patch everything into one universe, but I'm going to start on address 1. Slot 1, I should say, slot 1. Okay. And what that does is all the fixtures that follow, all the pixels, are just going to fall in line. So universe 3, address 1, then we're going to go address slot 4, slot 7, slot 10, on down the line. So that's what you need to do to first get it into the system. Then once it's in there, we can create a matrix. So from the menu, we hit matrix, and it gives you a template to create your matrix. It starts out with a 3x3, and the dots matrix fixture is a 4x4, so we're going to bump it up to 4x4. And what we need to do then is drag the pixels from the patch into our matrix template. So I'm going to tap the first pixel upper left, and I'm going to scroll up to page 3 and grab the first pixel here, and there it is assigned. Now, if you happen to have a a patch where it's just a single fixture with a lot of pixels already defined, all you have to do is pick that for the first one, and it'll fill in the blanks for the rest, and then you can edit it as needed. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to go manually, and I'm going to have to go down the list here and fill this in. So I've done most of these, and I've saved the last two here just so I can point out a few things. Now, if you remember back when I was showing you the pixel mapping on this device, you can pick a pixel map that goes, starts at the upper left corner, goes across, and then it goes across on down the row, or you can do a zigzag pattern. So I prefer to me, the most logical is to go across the top and the next. But, whatever pixel pattern you're stuck with, just be sure to assign the pixels in order. Another thing you can do is edit the order. Say you make a mistake or whatever. All you got to do is press and hold down one and then drag it over. So if you need to reorder it. So tap it, hold your finger, drag it over, and you can change the order. Another thing you can do is there's a clear button at the top, and a little X will appear, and you can tap that X and take that one out. So we hit done when we're done. And let me fix that one, then I'm going to tap it, and I'll go back to page 3 of my patch, and you can see that's the one that's missing, so I'll go ahead and reassign that. So anyway, the matrix is all patched, and what we can do is give it a name. We're going to call it dots, and we're going to save it. And so the matrix has been saved. Say you have 4 of these dots matrix. You're going to need to create a matrix for each one. You can't just copy one matrix to another matrix, because each matrix, the system needs to know the actual DMX address of that pixel. So that pixel has to be actually mapped into the patching, and then the matrix actually points to the patch. So we can select that matrix to use in the color editor, the color effects editor. So in the upper right here are the little colored dots up here. You tap that, and there's our dots matrix created. So I'm going to select it, and you can see what it does is I'm going to tap anywhere on the screen, make that go away. It actually lights up all the pixels there to show you that it's selected. So now that it's selected, we can go to the effects, and the color effects editor is really the only editor that supports matrices, because really that makes sense. They're just RGB pixels, and the color effects is what supports RGB. So you've got your presets. You got your 6 presets. The first one is just called the hue gamut effect, and you'll notice when I select it, there's a matrix simulator that shows boxes that match up the number of boxes or number of pixels that are in the matrix that you're working with. To really get the benefit of a matrix, you got to start using the phase control. So as you bring up the phase, you'll notice that vertical bars in the matrix are now slightly out of phase with each other. Let me speed that up a little bit. And the more I bring it up, the more out of phase they become. Now as you go higher, about a third of the way up, half the way up, we're going to go back. We're going to start going to horizontal bars that are out of phase. And as with some of the hue effects, you can confine the range of the color. So if say you want it to be more in the blue to purple range, you can confine the hue to that zone. Let's try some of the other presets. Here's random hues. And you start at the bottom, all the pixels will be in sync. And so as you bring up the out of phase, this is an interesting, the way this one works is it breaks into sections. So it'll go in vertical halves, vertical quarters, then we're going to go back, then we're going to go to horizontal halves, horizontal quarters. And the more rows and the more rows you have and more pixels you have, the more options it'll give you. See, now we're going into quadrants here. So that's what you can just play with the phase control. If you crank it up all the way, each pixel is going to be a random hue. And the random RGB works the same way. rather than be a full saturation hue, these are random RGB colors where it's just picking a random number for each of the RGB components. So we go back down here, they're all in sync, start bringing it up, vertical, then horizontal, and then individual pixels. So this effect is the center out effect, this next one. Let's do this one. Bring it out, bring the phase up. So it's going to phase from the center outwards. Let's spread the cues out a little bit. With vertical lines, then horizontal lines. Then as we bring it up, it's going to go center out. So that effect will be much more pronounced when you have more pixels. With just 16 pixels, you're kind of limited for what the center out effect looks like. There's always the record color effect. Say you just wanted to step through 3 colors. You go record, and I'm going to go green. Next step, blue. Next step, pink. And then let's hit play. And it steps through the 3 colors. And as you adjust the phase, you can get the vertical bars. There we go. Let me speed it up. Then we go horizontal bars. Stepping through my 3 colors. And then quadrants. So there it goes. Stepping out of sync, my 3 colors. And if you take the phase off, they're all going to go together through the 3 colors. You can build a matrix out of several fixtures. Say you had 4 of these dots matrix, 4x4 blinders, and you had them side by side across on a stage. So you can actually have, or you could build a wall of them. And so say we had 4 of these and we made a wall of these. And so we had that would give us an 8x8 a matrix. So to do that, what I would do is go into patching, and I'm going to put each one on a different page. So let's go. I put my first dot matrix on page 3, on page 4. Let's go RGB. Times 16. Then on page 5. RGB times 16. And then on page 6, we'll put our last dot matrix fixture, RGB times 16. This is assuming you have enough DMX channels to deal with this. So now when we go to, now when we go to matrix, let me clear this all. Now let's make the matrix 8x8. And you'll notice when it's larger than the screen, you can just scroll. So up in the upper left, 4x4 is going to be one of the dots matrix fixtures. In the upper right is going to be another one. So we're going to assume we have these set up against a wall. So what I got to do is, and it'll be a little bit time consuming, so I'll probably skip over some of this stuff and show the end result. So we're going to go to page 3, which is my first dots matrix, and I'm going to put this here, and just go down the line. Up here in the upper right is where we're going to start a new fixture. So I'm going to make this the second dots matrix fixture from page 4. So I'm going to skip ahead See, there's my page 3. That was one of my dots matrix. Here's page 4. This was my other one. So I'm going to start filling that part of the matrix in here. So we're creating a large matrix that's made up of 4 different fixtures. So I've gone ahead and filled out all my pixels in this matrix, and got a 64 pixel matrix, and it's made up of 4 dots matrix fixtures and I've called it the dots matrix wall. So if we now go to the effects and the color effect, we're still there. Now when I hit the, gotta select it first. Fixtures, dots matrix wall. Go to the effects, okay. So now you see our grid simulator is showing 64 pixels. And so if I pick the, let's pick the random one. You can see we get a little more variation in the phase. And also the center out effect looks a little bit better too. Take the phase down a little bit here. And we can change the direction so it looks like it's moving inward by hitting forward, reverse. I'd like to show you one other thing real quick. I mentioned earlier using an LED bar in a matrix. And what you could do would be to stack several LED bars either vertically or horizontally. And let me show you how you might want to do that. So if we went to patching, and I'm going to patch, in my custom profiles, I have this thing called a 6-bar 1000, and it's a 12 pixel bar. And let me patch 4 of those. So we're going to make a matrix out of 4 of these bars. So let's see, go to matrix, and let's make it a horizontal. We're going to go 12 columns. So basically we got 4 bars stacked on top of each other. So since I have a profile that's already been created with 12 pixels in it, I don't have to go through and load each pixel individually. What I can do is I can go to the upper left here, which is going to be my first bar, and I'm going to go to the 6-bar 1000, and I'm going to pick that, and it's automatically going to fill in the bar across the top row. And you'll notice they're labeled the 6-bar, and it's pixel 0, pixel 1, pixel 2, pixel 3 across the top. And I'll go ahead and fill in the rest of the bars. We're going to go 6-bar. The next one, the next one, and then the final one. So really, it does a lot of the work for you. If you've already got a profile made up with the pixels already defined, you don't have to do load in each individual pixel. So now if we go to our effects, let's see what comes up. Oops, got to select it. Go back to fixtures, select your matrix. Oh, I didn't even save it. That was stupid. Okay, let's go back to matrix. Let's call it bars. And let's save it. Okay, now we're going to select the bars matrix. We're going to go to the effects editor. So let's run the hue gamut effect and see what happens. And in our simulator, we've got 4 bars. So we've taken 4 bars and made one matrix out of it. Now you could do that vertically too. You could turn them vertical. Anyway, I hope this helps you understand the matrix feature of this, and I hope more people will use it because I think it's a really cool feature. Thanks for watching.